The golden sunset bathed the top-floor office of Romano Resorts, the crown jewel of luxury in the coastal city of San Celeste. Theo Romano, 33, lounged effortlessly in a sleek leather chair, his legs propped up on the polished mahogany desk, lazily swirling a glass of whiskey in hand. To the world, he was a business genius, the mastermind behind a multi-million-dollar resort empire built from scratch. Money, power, and fleeting affairs, those were the only things Theo ever needed. Love? Family? He didn't believe in them. The only thing worth trusting was his ever-growing bank account. But today, everything he built was under threat because of something he never saw coming: his father's will. His lawyer, Robert Klein, placed a thick file on the desk, his expression grave. "Theo, your father included a special clause in his will. If you don't get married by May 15th, you lose ownership of Romano Resorts. The entire estate will go to Damien." The name made Theo pause. Damien, his reckless, gambling-addicted cousin, notorious for blowing through hundreds of thousands at the very casinos Theo owned? A slow, amused chuckle escaped Theo's lips. Was the old man out of his mind? Did he really think marriage makes someone fit to run a business? But as his gaze dropped to the document, the official red notary seal staring back at him, his laughter died. If he wanted to keep his empire, he had 2 months to find a wife, and he needed one fast. A few streets away from Theo's world of luxury, Skye Bennett, 28, was gearing up for a small but daring act of defiance. Under the shimmering moonlight of San Celeste, she stood at the grand entrance of Romano Resorts, gripping a can of bright red spray paint. In front of her loomed an enormous bronze whale statue, a grand symbol of wealth and excess, proudly commissioned by Theo Romano himself. To Skye, it was nothing more than a monument to greed. She shook the can, then sprayed bold letters across the pristine metal. "Luxury destroys nature." A smirk tugged at her lips. She had loved the ocean for as long as she could remember. The vibrant coral reefs, the fearless sea turtles, the waves whispering secrets of the deep. But then, luxury resorts rose along the coast, choking marine life, displacing local fishermen like her family, and poisoning the waters. And the man profiting the most? Theo Romano. Before she could step back and admire her work, a loud crack split the air. She barely had time to look up before the massive statue wobbled, then collapsed into the sand with a deafening boom. "Oh hell!" alarms blared from the resort. Before she could bolt, blinding security lights pinned her in place. Standing at the center of a group of guards was Theo Romano himself, arms crossed, his pristine white suit making him look like a villain straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. His stormy gaze flicked between the fallen statue and the graffiti splashed across it before settling on her. "You just destroyed a $100,000 art piece. Care to explain, or should I call the cops right now?" Skye swallowed, but she wasn't the type to back down. "That overpriced trash deserved it." She lifted her chin defiantly. "You think throwing money at a statue makes you an environmentalist?" Theo arched a brow, intrigued by her audacity, but instead of anger, a thought sparked in his mind. This woman, with her fiery glare and fearless stance, might just be the perfect answer to his problem. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice suddenly lighter. "Skye Bennett?" She spat the words like a challenge, fingers still clenched around the spray can. Theo smirked, a glint of calculation in his eyes. "Good, 'cause you just landed yourself in some serious trouble." Skye folded her arms, her sharp gaze locked onto Theo as she entered his office the next morning. She had braced herself for a massive fine, or worse, a lawsuit, but instead he sat there, lounging in his chair, gray eyes calculating. "You have 2 choices," Theo began, his voice calm as if negotiating a $1 million deal. "1, I call the cops and you end up with a fine so huge you'll never recover. 2, he leaned in, smirking. "You marry me for 6 months." Skye arched a brow. "You're insane." "Completely rational," Theo shrugged. "If you agree, I'll pay you $1 million. Enough to save your little marine rescue center." Skye let out a dry laugh. "You think I'd sell myself for money?" "No," Theo replied smoothly. I think you're smart enough to recognize an opportunity." She wanted to refuse, but images of injured turtles and her struggling center flashed in her mind. $1 million wasn't just money, it was a lifeline. After a long pause, she crossed her arms. "Fine, but I have conditions." Theo smirked. "I'm listening. No touching, no pet names. And after 6 months, we walk away, no strings attached." Theo's grin deepened. Deal. The contract was signed. And exactly 1 week later, they got married. The ceremony was held at Romano Resort's private beach, golden light shimmering over the waves. It was a lavish event, attended by high-profile investors and socialites. Skye wore a simple white dress, her eyes flashing with defiance rather than love. She felt like a fish out of water. Meanwhile, Theo, in a perfectly tailored black suit, stood at the altar, exuding confidence as if he were in complete control. Their vows were rehearsed, emotionless. "I, Theo Romano, take you, Skye Bennett, as my wife. I, Skye Bennett, take you, Theo Romano, as my husband." It was all just for show. Until the kiss. Theo leaned down, intending to brush a light kiss against her lips, just for the audience. But when their lips met, a jolt shot through Skye. She felt his warmth, his breath against her skin, and her pulse spiked. And Theo? He thought this was just a performance, but for a split second, he forgot. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, but it did. The applause snapped them back to reality. They quickly masked their reactions. But deep down, they both knew this was no ordinary contract. But the moment Skye stepped into Theo's oceanfront villa the next day, she realized one thing. This wasn't just a fake marriage. It was war. After the fake wedding, Skye moved into Theo's oceanfront villa, a modern architectural marvel perched on the cliffs, its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the endless sea. It should have been paradise, but to Skye, it was a golden cage for the next 6 months. "Welcome to your new home, darling wife." Theo smirked as she stepped inside. Skye shot him a glare. "Drop the act before I put poison in your coffee." Theo chuckled, his gray eyes twinkling. "This is going to be fun, Bennett. I can't wait." And so the war began. Sleepless night. Just as Skye was about to drift into sleep, "Love is a Beautiful Journey," a ridiculously sentimental love ballad blasted through the walls at full volume. Skye shot up. "Romano, turn that damn thing off." From the other room, Theo's voice was smug. "Don't you like romantic music, wifey?" Her eye twitched. Game on. The next morning, Theo strolled to his infinity pool, ready for a refreshing swim. The moment he dived in, he shot back up, gagging. The pool reeked of seawater, green with algae, and tiny fish darted around. Skye, sipping her orange juice, smirked. "You love the ocean, don't you, Romano? Enjoy." A few days later, while Skye was working at the Sea Turtle Rescue Center, a delivery truck pulled up. "Delivery for Skye Bennett from your loving husband." The doors flung open, revealing hundreds of red roses spilling onto the pavement. Skye nearly dropped her clipboard. Her colleagues burst into laughter. "Didn't know your husband was such a romantic, Skye." Her face burned. Romano was going to pay for this. Skye wasn't going down without a fight. The morning of Theo's important investor meeting, she changed his alarm sound to a screaming wail. At exactly 5 a.m., the deafening wail echoed through the villa. Theo bolted upright, nearly falling out of bed. "What the hell?" Skye, sipping tea in the kitchen, smirked. "Good morning, husband." But something else started happening. Skye realized Theo wasn't just a cold businessman. He stayed up late working, personally reviewing every financial detail instead of blindly trusting his team. Theo saw that Skye wasn't just a reckless activist. She cared about every injured turtle like they were family, willing to stay up all night just to save one. One night, when Skye fell asleep on the couch, Theo quietly draped a blanket over her. For the first time, she didn't feel trapped. She felt safe. But was this just part of their dangerous game, or was something real starting to form between them? The prank war continued, but somehow, The line between real and fake had begun to blur. Sky no longer saw Theo as just a cold-hearted billionaire. He was someone with layers, someone more complicated than she had thought. And for the first time in his life, Theo felt like someone saw him for who he was, not just for his money. But everything shattered in one night. That evening, while tidying up Theo's office, Sky accidentally overheard his phone call with Robert, his lawyer. Theo's voice was calm, detached. "The Sea Turtle Rescue Center? Yeah, they requested funding a few years ago. I rejected it. No profit." Sky's heart clenched painfully. She remembered the day she had stood outside Romano Resorts, proposal in hand, only to be turned away without a second glance. And now, she was fake married to the very man who had crushed her dream. Rage boiled inside her. When Theo walked into the dining room that night, Sky was already waiting. "You rejected my rescue center just because it wasn't profitable?" Her voice was ice cold. Theo froze. "You were eavesdropping?" "Don't change the subject, Romano." She threw her napkin onto the table. "Now I get it. You never cared about anything but money." "And what about you?" Theo let out a bitter laugh. "Didn't you sign this contract for money too?" The words hit like a slap. "You know what, Romano?" Sky whispered, her eyes burning. "I can fake being your wife, but I will never love a man like you." And with that, she walked away, leaving Theo behind, his fingers gripping the glass tightly for the first time. His eyes flickered with something he had never felt before: regret. 2 days had passed since the argument in the dining room. The once lively villa, filled with teasing and bickering, was now eerily silent. Sky and Theo avoided each other like strangers. Sky spent all day at the rescue center, refusing to come home before midnight. Theo drowned himself in work, but couldn't focus. And then on the third night, Theo did something even he hadn't expected. He left his office, got in his car, and drove straight to the rescue center. Sky was tending to an injured turtle when she noticed a shadow at the door. Theo Romano, dressed in his signature black suit, but looking exhausted. She crossed her arms. "What are you doing here?" Theo glanced around, then said slowly, "I want to help." Sky arched a brow. "Since when does not profitable concern you?" Theo sighed, slipping off his jacket. "Since you taught me that not everything has to be profitable to matter." And that night, Theo Romano, the billionaire who had never done manual work in his life, knelt down and helped Sky care for the turtles. He cleaned wounds. He learned how to check for dehydration. He even got bitten by a tiny turtle, making Sky laugh for the first time in days. And when she laughed, Theo realized something. He wanted to see that smile every single day. That night, after hours of tending to the turtles, Theo leaned against the wooden wall of the rescue center, eyes fixed on the ocean. Sky stepped up beside him for the first time without her usual guarded stance. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. Theo was silent for a moment before he turned to her, his gray eyes filled with something she had never seen before. "Because I don't want to lose you." Sky froze. "What are you talking about?" Theo let out a quiet laugh, but there was no arrogance in it this time. "At first, I thought this was just a game, just a contract, but then you came along and made me forget everything else." Her heart clenched. "You're joking, right?" He shook his head. "I've never been more serious in my life." The distance between them was barely inches now. The ocean breeze ruffled Sky's hair, and for the first time, Theo didn't look like a cold billionaire. He just looked like a man confessing the most honest truth of his life. "I love you, Sky." She didn't know what to say, because deep down, no matter how many times she had tried to deny it, she had already fallen for him too. Sky didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to believe Theo, but another part was terrified. She had spent her whole life fighting against men like him, people who only cared about profits, who built empires at the cost of nature. She couldn't fall for someone like that, right? Theo seemed to understand the war raging inside her. He took a step back, his voice quieter. "I don't expect you to believe me right away, but I'll prove to you that I've changed." And the next day, Theo disappeared. But he wasn't just gone, he was working. For 3 days, he met with architects, made calls, and personally oversaw every detail of a project he never thought he would care about. He wasn't just proving his love to Sky, he was proving it to himself. Sky thought she would feel relieved. But when she returned to the villa and found it empty, when there were no more arguments, no more pranks, and no more quiet glances exchanged between them, she realized a cruel truth. She missed him, she loved him, but it was too late now, wasn't it? 3 days passed. Sky buried herself in work at the rescue center, trying not to think about Theo. But his absence had left a strange void in her life. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, one of her colleagues rushed over, excitement shining in their eyes. "Sky, have you seen it yet?" Sky frowned. "Seen what?" They grabbed her hand and dragged her outside. And when Sky saw the building in front of her, she froze. A brand new marine sanctuary with modern tanks, a larger rehabilitation area, and a gleaming sign that read, "Skybound Marine Sanctuary." The ocean breeze ruffled her hair, but Sky couldn't feel anything. She was too stunned. Someone had built this for her, and she knew exactly who it was. A deep voice sounded behind her. "Do you like it?" Sky turned around, and there stood Theo, his clothes covered in sand and paint, his smile softer than she had ever seen. Sky stared at Theo, her heart pounding. "Did you do all of this?" Theo shrugged, but she saw the tension in his gaze. "I used to think money was the only thing that mattered, but then you came along." He held her eyes. "And you made me realize some things are worth more than profit." Sky felt something shatter inside her. All the doubts, all the fears, suddenly didn't matter anymore. Because this wasn't a game anymore. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't an act. It was just them and something real. "I love you, Sky." Theo's voice was steady, unwavering. "And I don't want to lose you." Sky stared at him, frozen. She had always thought that if someone loved her, she would know immediately. But now, standing before the man she once despised, she realized love wasn't always that simple. She stepped closer, placing a hand against his chest, where his heart was racing. "I love you too, Romano." A slow, radiant smile spread across Theo's face before he pulled her into a deep, breath-stealing kiss. And this time, there was no contract binding them. Only love. The next morning, Sky walked into the villa, holding a $1 million check. Theo looked at her, smirking. "What are you planning to do with that?" Sky stared at the check in her hands. $1 million. The money that could have saved her rescue center, secured her future, the reason she agreed to this marriage in the first place. But now, it meant nothing. Because without him, none of it mattered. With a deep breath, she held up the check and tore it apart, letting the pieces drift away like falling petals in the wind. "I don't need it," she said softly. Theo watched her, surprise flickering in his eyes. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I didn't sign this contract for money, Romano, and I'm not staying for it either." Theo leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers. "Then why?" "Because I love you." A slow smile spread across Theo's face. Not his usual calculated smirk, but a real, unguarded smile. He lifted her off the ground, spinning her under the golden sun of San Celeste. No more contracts. No more 6-month deadlines. Only real, unconditional love. And for the first time in his life, Theo Romano had won something that had nothing to do with business, power, or strategy. He had won her, the only prize that had ever truly mattered.